2,500 years ago, India was fraught with weak and ineffective kings. These kings were too busy squabbling to acknowledge the threat of foreign invaders. It was during this time that Alexander the Great invaded India. The kings may not have realized the danger, but one scholar did. This scholar's name was Chanakya. Chanakya pledged, "I will do whatever it takes to turn this land into one strong empire." Soon, Chanakya visited King Dhanananda of Magadha and offered his services. The king refused Chanakya's guidance on matters of politics and economics. Dhanananda chose instead to make fun of him. Look at this ugly scholar. Furious at the king's insolence, Chanakya replied, "You arrogant fool! You'll pay for this. I will reduce you and your entire dynasty to ashes." Saying so, Chanakya stormed out of the palace in search of a champion. Someone who had the acumen, the skills, and the will needed to be an emperor. His quest finally ended when he met Chandragupta Maurya. He trained Chandragupta himself and told him only a kingdom as strong as Magadha can resist Alexander's mighty army. What it needs is a brave young ruler like you. After years of training, Chandragupta was ready to attack Magadha. To this end, the student-teacher duo adopted various strategies. Their first strategy was to win over the masses of Magadha. Chanakya knew they also needed a powerful ally. He approached the greedy king Parvatak and promised him half of Magadha in return for his support. The time was now ripe for them to march into war. Armed with a large army, Chandragupta attacked Dhanananda. The two forces clashed on the battlefield. After a fierce and bloody war, Chandragupta emerged victorious. Chandragupta, wise as he was, gave all the credit to Chanakya. Chanakya knew the war was over, but he was well aware that Chandragupta's reign was still in danger as long as Dhanananda survived. So Chanakya had the Nanda kings and all his sons poisoned to death. Finally, all of Chandragupta's challengers were vanquished. Or so he thought. Rakshas, Dhanananda's minister, was planning to avenge the king's death. Rakshas decided to turn King Parvatak against Chanakya and Chandragupta. This was an easy feat. Rakshas was aware of Parvatak's greedy nature and approached him. "Your Highness, Chandragupta could not have won without your support. The throne should be yours, not his." Fickle as he was, Parvatak changed his loyalty and agreed to help Rakshas. With Parvatak's support, Rakshas put his first plan in motion. When Chandragupta fell ill, Rakshas had a physician mix poison into his medicine. However, before Chandragupta could touch his fatal dose, Chanakya arrived on the scene. He demanded the physician taste the medicine before Chandragupta consumed it. What happened next? The physician took one sip of the potion and the poison claimed him. Looking at Chandragupta's stunned expression, Chanakya reminded him, a king should never trust anyone till he is absolutely certain of their loyalty. Not one to be discouraged, Rakshas moved on to a more sinister plan. Around this time, Chandragupta was getting ready to move into Dhanananda's palace. The palace attendants assured him that everything was in place to welcome the new king. But Chanakya intervened. "I would like to inspect the palace myself." Though everything seemed to be in place, nothing missed Chanakya's eyes. He spotted a trail of ants emerging from a crack in the floor, carrying grains of rice. Immediately, Chanakya ordered his soldiers, "Burn down this palace." Chandragupta was aghast at the loss of his new palace. But Chanakya, of course, had a perfectly good explanation for the seemingly erratic action. You see, Rakshas had hidden hundreds of soldiers in the palace basement. They were waiting to ambush Chandragupta. All the soldiers were raised in the fire. Rakshas was upset after losing so many of his men, but he was a resourceful man. The next time he sent a beautiful woman to entertain Chandragupta. Chanakya took one look at her and recognized her for what she was: poison. Her single touch was enough to cause death. He implored Chandragupta to send the entertainer to Parvatak instead. Before the next dawn, the traitor Parvatak had died. And so, Chanakya eliminated another enemy. By this time, Rakshas was done making stealthy moves. He decided to take a more direct approach. He instigated Parvatak's son Malaiketu and 5 other kings to attack Chandragupta. As soon as the news reached Chanakya, he used his unfailing acumen to construct a plan. First, he had a spy ride towards Malaiketu. Then, Chanakya started an argument between Chandragupta and himself. Finally, he had the spy get caught with a letter by Malaiketu's men. Chanakya had falsely signed the letter addressed to Chandragupta under Rakshas's name. It read that the 5 kings were about to betray Malaiketu and join Chandragupta instead. Without giving the matter any further thought, Malaiketu had all the 5 kings slaughtered. Rakshas tried his best to convince Malaiketu that he hadn't authored the letter. He even pointed out that the letter wasn't even in his handwriting. But Malaiketu refused to believe him. Finally, dejected, Rakshas admitted defeat. He wandered the forest thinking, if only Dhanananda was as able a ruler as Chandragupta. Just then, a chariot carrying Chanakya pulled up near him. Chanakya stopped him with the words, King Chandragupta needs an able and loyal minister like you, Rakshas. Rakshas couldn't believe this twist of fate. He had a change of heart and he graciously accepted this offer. The kingdom now not only had an able king but also a loyal minister. With his mission accomplished, Chanakya decided to move back to his hermitage. Just as Chanakya had envisioned, under Chandragupta's reign, Magadha turned out to be a mighty empire. The borders were finally secure and the foreign invaders were defeated. If it weren't for Chanakya, the history of India as well as the world would have been very different. He not only prevented a foreign invasion, but also chose the right man for the battle. Chanakya used his power not to sit on the throne himself, but to give the people the king they deserved. For all of this, he is rightfully remembered as the most brilliant kingmaker the world has ever seen.
This video was adapted from an Amar Chitra Katha comic. If you liked it, then click on the button above to buy this or any other book from Amar Chitra Katha. And remember to like and share and subscribe for many more stories from India's favorite storyteller, Amar Chitra Katha.